It was supposed to be a quiet afternoon. I'd driven 3 hours out from the city, past winding roads and dry brush, to a stretch of federal land known more to hikers and bird watchers than tourists. No one really bothered coming this far. And that was the point. I parked my Jeep near a dirt shoulder, grabbed my pack, and slung my camera over my shoulder. The Nikon was older, scratched, and weather-worn, just how I liked it. It had followed me through jungles, deserts, and dust storms. Today, it would follow me through peace. At least, that was the plan. The sun was climbing high when I reached the ridge. It was quiet, the kind of silence only open spaces could hold. I crouched low to capture the wide-angle shot, jagged peaks cutting the sky, the sun glinting off a distant stream. I heard the vehicle before I saw it. Tires crunching gravel. 2 doors slamming. I stood slowly. 2 men in uniforms approached, tan shirts, mirrored sunglasses, and all the attitude that came with being out here too long with no one to boss around. "You got a permit for that camera?" one of them asked sharply. I raised an eyebrow. "This is public land." He stepped closer. "Still need permission to film." "You been recording people?" "No. Just the hills." The second officer circled behind me. "What's your name?" I calmly gave it. No point in escalating. Then came the hand on my wrist. "You're coming with us. Until we sort this out." I didn't resist. Not yet. But something in me tightened. Not fear. Instinct. The cuffs weren't necessary, but they used them anyway. Metal bit into my wrists as they marched me to their SUV, the second officer gripping my arm like I might bolt. He hadn't seen the way I moved, he wouldn't have been able to stop me if I had. But I let it play out. You learn patience in the Corps. You learn timing. The back seat smelled like dried sweat and old vinyl. My camera was tossed on the passenger seat like junk, lens down. We drove down the dirt road, neither of them speaking at first. The younger one kept looking at me through the rearview mirror, jaw tight, like he was waiting for me to act up. I didn't give him the satisfaction. "You some kind of activist?" the driver finally asked, tone sharp but unsure. "No." "Then what are you doing out here with a camera?" "Documenting landscapes." "That's legal." He scoffed, but didn't push further. The younger one muttered, "You people always have a story." I stared straight ahead. They pulled into a ranger outpost, little more than a shack with a radio antenna and a metal bench bolted to the porch. They marched me inside. Asked more questions. Checked my ID. Scrolled through the pictures on my camera without permission. Still, I said nothing. Until they started talking about sending me downtown and holding me for questioning. Until they turned to each other and whispered like they weren't sure what they were dealing with anymore. That's when I spoke. Calmly. Quietly. "You boys want to know the truth?" They turned. I locked eyes with the one holding my camera. I was a Marine sniper. 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines. 3 tours. Honorable discharge. Silence. Dead, thick silence. The younger officer blinked. The camera in his hands suddenly looked fragile. I continued, voice like stone. "And you just put hands on me for taking a photo of a mountain." The mood changed instantly. The officer holding my camera set it down like it was radioactive. The other one, older, with a mustache and a sunburned neck, cleared his throat and took a step back, eyes scanning me like he was just seeing me for the first time. "You said Marine sniper?" he asked, voice a bit more cautious now. I nodded slowly. "That's right." The younger one tried to brush it off. "That's supposed to mean something." I looked at him, not angry, just steady. "It means I've spent years doing things you've only seen in movies. It means I've been trained to stay invisible in terrain like this. It means I know how to keep my cool when people with badges forget what those badges actually stand for. His mouth opened, but no words came out. The older officer pulled him aside, whispered something low. I watched them. They weren't just rethinking their next move, they were recalculating the entire situation. That's the thing about assumptions. They're fragile. And when they crack, people scramble. He came back over, this time without the swagger. Look, sir, he said, voice stiff. There's just been some confusion. Lot of people filming out here lately. Some of them causing trouble. You understand? I didn't answer. Just stared. The younger one muttered, we didn't know who you were. I let that sit in the air for a second before replying. You never asked. They uncuffed me. No apology. Just silence. And guilt. Part 4 coming next, continue. Part 4 ChatGPT, Part 4, the quiet exit. They handed me back my camera like it was sacred now, both of them avoiding eye contact. I checked the lens, then the memory card. Nothing damaged, but I could still feel the smear of their fingerprints on the casing, like a stain that wouldn't quite rub off. I didn't say thank you. Didn't need to. As I stepped out into the dry air, the sun was already sliding down toward the ridge. The light was perfect, burnt orange and gold streaking across the sky, the kind of light photographers live for. But I didn't raise my camera. Not yet. Behind me, I could feel them watching through the window of that tiny ranger shack. Two men who thought they were in control until a few words rearranged the power in the room. Until their perception cracked wide open. I walked to my Jeep, unlocked it, and placed the camera gently in the passenger seat. My wrist still bore faint red lines where the cuffs had sat. I traced them with my fingers, then stared back at the outpost. They were still frozen in place. Not because of what I'd done. But because of what I could have done, and chose not to. That's discipline. That's training. That's the thing about some of us, we don't raise our voices to be heard. We just speak the truth. And sometimes, that's louder than any threat could ever be. I got in and started the engine. Gravel kicked up behind me as I drove off, leaving them and their shaken pride in the dust. I didn't come out here looking for trouble. But trouble found me anyway. And left with its tail between its legs. Let me know if you want a short epilogue or full video description plus tags next. Part 5 ChatGPT, Part 5, the epilogue. I didn't report them. Could've. Maybe should've. But I've learned over time that not every battle deserves a bullet, or a headline. Some lessons land harder in silence. The next week, I returned to the same spot, same ridge, same sun. But this time, I came at sunrise. No patrols. No interruptions. Just wind cutting through the grass and the echo of birds waking the earth. I set up the tripod. Snapped the shot. Held it in the viewfinder a moment longer than usual. Not just to frame it, but to remember. Because the photograph wasn't just of a mountain. It was proof I stood my ground without ever raising my voice. That out there, on federal land, in the middle of nowhere, respect wasn't demanded, it was earned. And when I looked at that picture later, sunlight crowning the cliffs, shadows stretched across the wild, I didn't just see nature. I saw restraint. I saw clarity. I saw a Marine sniper with a camera, who knew exactly what not to shoot. Would you like a video description, tags, and disclaimer now? Part 6 ChatGPT, Part 6, the follow-up. A few days later, I got an email. No subject line. Just a single sentence in the body, didn't know. Won't forget. No signature. But I didn't need one. It was from the older officer. I stared at it for a long time before deleting it. Not out of spite, out of understanding. He was trying, in his own limited way, to acknowledge what happened. Some men don't know how to say sorry. So they whisper it through silence and short messages, hoping it's enough. Maybe it was. Maybe it wasn't. But I moved on. I submitted one of the Ridge photos to a veteran-run photography magazine. Didn't include my name. Just the title, Never Assume. It got published the following month, full-page spread. I got a dozen emails from other veterans, some photographers, some not. All of them knew the weight behind the image. They understood what I didn't need to explain. That sometimes the camera is heavier than a rifle. That sometimes a photo says, I survived it, and I didn't lose myself. That moment out there in the wild wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a reminder. That no matter what uniform you wore, badge or fatigues, respect is not a courtesy. It's a mirror. And what you see depends on who you think you're looking at. Let me know if you want the video description, tags, and disclaimer next. Part 7 ChatGPT, Part 7, the reminder. A month later, I got a call from a former teammate, Carlos, one of the few guys from my old unit I still kept in touch with. He'd seen the photo in the magazine. Was that you? He asked, though he already knew. Yeah. You say anything in the caption? Nope. He chuckled. Didn't need to. That picture's loud enough. We talked a bit longer, about deployments, knees that crack louder than rifles, and the way civilian life makes you ache in different places. Before he hung up, he said something I still carry with me, keep shooting, brother. But only with the lens. That stayed with me. Because that's the difference. The sniper in me could end things from 800 yards out. Quiet. Final. No questions. But the man I'd become chose something harder, witnessing without reacting. Enduring without snapping. Documenting instead of retaliating. Out in that wilderness, I'd been underestimated, restrained, and accused, for carrying a camera. But when the truth came out, they didn't just release me. They recalibrated. And that's worth more than vengeance. That's what leaves an impression. A photo lasts longer than a fight. Ready for final part with full wrap-up, or want video description/tags now? Part 8 ChatGPT, Part 8, Full Circle. Weeks passed. I kept going back to that stretch of land, alone, undisturbed. Not because I was chasing a moment, but because the land no longer felt like a battlefield. It felt like mine again. I wasn't followed. No more patrols. No more questions. One morning, I spotted something unexpected at the trailhead, a laminated sign, freshly posted on the information board, photography permitted. Please respect nature and each other. I stared at it for a while. It wasn't an apology. But it was change. Someone higher up must have gotten the message. Or maybe the two rangers passed it along. Either way, something shifted. That mattered more than names or headlines. That meant someone listened. I hiked up to the ridge again, sat down in the same spot, and didn't even raise my camera. Just sat there. Breathing in silence. Breathing in freedom. Because freedom isn't always about flags or parades. Sometimes it's just the ability to stand on public ground, take a picture, and not be treated like a threat. And as I looked out over the landscape, wide, wild, and untouched, I realized something deeper. They hadn't just arrested a man with a camera. They'd arrested a man who had nothing to prove, and everything to teach. And in the end, they learned. Would you like the video description, tags, and disclaimer now? Part 9 ChatGPT, Part 9, Legacy and Focus. Months later, I was invited to speak at a veterans event in a nearby town. Not about combat. Not about medals. About photography. I stood on a small stage in front of folding chairs and worn boots, holding up the same Nikon they tried to confiscate. This camera weighs less than a rifle, I told the crowd. But sometimes it takes more strength to carry it. They nodded. Because they understood. It wasn't about what happened to me out there. It was about what didn't happen. About the restraint. The choice. The quiet power of holding your ground without drawing blood. After the speech, a young veteran approached me, barely 30, with unsure eyes and a camera strap around his neck. "Can I ask something?" he said. "When they cuffed you, how did you stay calm?" I looked him in the eye. "Because I knew who I was." "They didn't." He nodded slowly, like he was still processing that. Before he walked away, I added, "Let them make the noise. You make the shot." He smiled. A real one. Then he raised his own camera and clicked. Just once. And walked off. Final part 10 coming up. Want to continue? Part 10 Final ChatGPT, Part 10, Final. The shot that echoed that single photo the young vet took ended up on the event's website, me standing on stage, camera in hand, silhouetted against the wall of service flags. I didn't expect much from it. But it got shared. A lot. Veterans groups. Photography forums. Even a few quiet reposts by law enforcement officers with captions like, "Important lesson here." No outrage. No protest. Just reflection. And that was enough. One night, months later, I got a small package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a folded piece of paper and something wrapped in cloth. The note read, "We learned more from that moment than you'll ever know. Thank you." I unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a polished brass lens filter, standard thread, military engraved. On the edge, in small etched letters, were 3 words, Marine. Witness. Teacher. I smiled. Not because I needed validation. But because every time I raised my camera after that, I knew it wasn't just about capturing a scene. It was about sending a signal. You can underestimate the man behind the lens, but one steady shot can still change the frame. Forever.